The emergency sirens cut through the silence of the Galactic Military Academy library like a blade. Todd Harris looked up from his xenobiology textbook, his fingers still holding the page he had been reading. Around him, dozens of alien cadets froze in confusion. Some had never heard these alarms before. The academy had been peaceful for 12 cycles. Todd's human instincts kicked in immediately. Something was very wrong. Red lights began flashing across every surface. The calm blue glow of the reading stations disappeared, replaced by harsh crimson warnings. A mechanical voice echoed through the massive chamber, speaking in the universal trade language that all cadets understood. Containment breach in Sector 7. Krell hunting reserves compromised. All cadets must proceed to designated safe zones. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. The words hung in the air for exactly 2 seconds. Then chaos erupted. A Velmorian cadet shrieked, his tentacles flailing wildly as he knocked over a stack of data tablets. They clattered across the floor, screens cracking on impact. 3 Xinthian students bolted for the main door, their 6 legs carrying them faster than most species could run. A massive Thraxian, easily 3 times Todd's size, tried to squeeze through a doorway at the same time as a group of smaller cadets. Bodies pressed together. Someone screamed. Todd remained seated. His heart rate increased, but his mind stayed clear. He had trained for this. Not this exact situation, but humans had been dealing with predators since before they could write. Panic killed more people than actual danger. He had learned that lesson early. The Krell. Todd knew what that word meant. He had studied them just 3 days ago in his xenobiology course. They were apex predators from Krell Prime, a death world with gravity twice that of Earth. The Krell had been engineered by an ancient race as the perfect hunters. 4 arms, each ending in claws that could slice through reinforced steel. Skin like armor plating. Sensory organs that could detect electromagnetic signatures from a kilometer away. They could see in multiple light spectrums and track prey by vibration alone. No species in recorded history had ever survived a one-on-one encounter with a Krell hunter. Not without weapons. Not without preparation. And now 6 of them were loose in the academy. Todd stood slowly. His backpack sat on the floor beside his chair. He grabbed it with one hand and slung it over his shoulder. His other hand went to his jacket pocket, checking for the item he always carried. His fingers closed around the smooth metal cylinder. His pen. Standard military issue, designed to write in any environment, any gravity, any temperature. It was the only thing he had. The library's main exits were already jammed with panicking cadets. Todd could see them pushing and shoving, their different body types making it worse. A small Pishin got knocked down and trampled. Todd turned away from the chaos. There had to be another way out. He had memorized the academy's layout during his first week. Humans were good at that. Pattern recognition. Spatial awareness. Skills that evolution had given them during millions of years of hunting and being hunted on Earth. The library had 3 levels. He was on the 3rd floor. There would be emergency stairs on the far side, away from the main entrance. Those stairs would be empty. Todd moved quickly but carefully. His boots made soft sounds on the polished floor. Around him, alien cadets ran in every direction. Some were calling for help on their communication devices. Others were trying to hide under desks and behind shelves. Todd understood their fear, but fear without thinking was useless. He reached the emergency stairs and pushed through the door. The stairwell was dark except for small emergency lights along the floor. The sirens were quieter here, muffled by thick walls. Todd started down, taking the steps 2 at a time. His human legs were built for endurance running. Aliens often joked about how weak humans looked compared to other species. They did not understand that humans had hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Humans could run all day if they needed to. Todd reached the 2nd floor landing and stopped. He heard something. A scraping sound. Metal on metal. It came from below, from the 1st floor. He pressed himself against the wall and listened. The sound came again. Slow. Deliberate. Something heavy was moving on the floor below. Something that was not trying to be quiet because it did not need to be quiet. Predators that sat at the top of the food chain did not worry about making noise. Todd's mouth went dry. One of the Krell was in the stairwell. He could go back up. Return to the 3rd floor and find another route. But that might trap him. The Krell were hunters. They would spread out and search every area. Running blindly would only delay the inevitable. He needed to think. Humans were not the strongest species. They were not the fastest. They were not the most armored or the most venomous. But humans could think. They could plan. They could adapt. Todd slowly pulled his pen from his pocket. He looked at it in the dim emergency lighting. A simple writing instrument. Metal body, ink cartridge, clip on the side. It seemed useless against a creature that could tear through an armored door. But humans had survived for thousands of years by turning useless things into useful tools. He unscrewed the pen's cap and set it silently on the floor. The exposed tip caught a glint of red light from the emergency system. Sharp enough to write. Maybe sharp enough for other things. The scraping sound grew louder. Whatever was down there was coming up the stairs. Todd could hear breathing now. Deep and rhythmic. The Krell did not need to breathe oxygen like most species. They processed multiple atmospheric gases. That made them even more dangerous. They could hunt in environments where other creatures would suffocate. Todd pressed harder against the wall. His mind raced through everything he knew about Krell physiology. Electromagnetic sensing. That was their primary hunting method. They could detect the electrical signals that all living bodies produced. Hearts pumping. Neurons firing. Muscles contracting. Every living thing was like a beacon to them. But metal also produced electromagnetic signatures. Especially when it moved. When it scraped against other metals or created friction. Todd looked at his pen again. Then he looked at the metal railing that ran along the stairwell wall. An idea formed in his mind. It was dangerous. It might not work. But doing nothing guaranteed death. The breathing grew closer. Todd could smell it now. A sharp, acidic scent that made his eyes water. The Krell was maybe 10 meters away. Maybe less. In seconds it would round the corner and see him. A human. Alone. Unarmed. Easy prey. Todd gripped his pen tightly. His hand was steady. Fear tried to creep into his mind, but he pushed it away. Fear was natural. Fear kept you alive if you used it correctly. He was not going to die in this stairwell. Not today. A massive shadow appeared on the wall below. Forearms. Hunched posture. Head with multiple sensory organs extending outward like antennae. The Krell was almost here. Todd took a deep breath and prepared to do something very stupid or very clever. With humans, it was often hard to tell the difference until after it was over. Todd's heart hammered in his chest as the Krell's shadow grew larger on the stairwell wall. The creature was seconds away from reaching his floor. He could hear its claws clicking against the metal steps. Each click sent a shiver down his spine. But fear alone would not save him. He needed to think like a predator to survive one. His xenobiology instructor, Professor Zelther, had spent 2 full sessions on Krell hunting behavior. Most cadets found the lectures boring. They took notes and memorized facts for tests. Todd had listened differently. He listened the way his ancestors listened when they learned which plants were poisonous and which animals were dangerous. He listened to survive. The Krell hunted by electromagnetic signatures. Every living creature produced electrical signals. Hearts created rhythmic pulses. Brains fired neurons constantly. Muscles contracted and released, generating tiny currents. To a Krell, these signals were like bright lights in a dark room. Impossible to miss. Impossible to hide from. But metal also created electromagnetic fields. Especially when it moved against other metal. Friction generated charges. The Academy's walls were filled with pipes and conduits. Water pipes. Power cables. Ventilation ducts. All metal. All capable of producing signals. Todd pressed his pen against the metal railing and scraped it downward. The sound was harsh and loud in the quiet stairwell. More importantly, it created a brief electromagnetic pulse. Small but detectable. He did it again, harder this time, then immediately moved backward up 3 steps. The Krell's breathing changed. It grew faster. More excited. The scraping sound on the stairs stopped. Todd heard a different sound now. A wet, sniffing noise. The creature was analyzing the air, trying to match scents with electromagnetic readings. Todd waited 5 seconds, counting in his head. Then he reached out and scraped his pen against the railing again, this time on the opposite side of the stairwell. Another electromagnetic pulse. Another false signal. He moved again before the sound finished echoing. A roar erupted from below. The Krell had sensed the signals but could not pinpoint the source. Todd heard it slam against the wall where his pen had scraped. The impact was tremendous. Dust and small pieces of wall material rained down from the ceiling. The entire stairwell shook. Todd did not wait. He turned and ran up the stairs back toward the 2nd floor landing. His boots were quiet against the steps. He had learned to run softly during survival training on Earth. Humans could be quiet when they needed to be. Not as silent as some species, but quiet enough. Behind him, the Krell roared again. It was angry now. Confused. Its prey was not behaving correctly. Prey was supposed to run in straight lines. Prey was supposed to panic and make mistakes. This prey was doing something different. Todd reached the second floor and burst through the door into the corridor. The hallway stretched in both directions, lined with closed classroom doors. Emergency lights cast strange shadows across the walls. He could hear other sounds now. Distant screams. Running footsteps. Other cadets were still trying to escape. He had maybe 30 seconds before the Krell reached this floor. He needed to move. The security control room was in the eastern wing of the academy, 2 buildings away. If he could reach it, he might be able to access the containment systems. Maybe even seal off sections to trap the predators. But first he had to survive the next 2 minutes. Todd ran down the hallway, his backpack bouncing against his shoulders. His eyes scanned everything. Looking for advantages. Looking for tools. Humans were tool users. Give a human a stick and they would find 10 ways to use it. Give them a rock and they would build civilization. He passed a maintenance closet. The door was slightly open. Inside he could see cleaning supplies and equipment. He kept running. No time to search. No time to stop. The stairwell door exploded open behind him. The Krell crashed through with such force that the door tore off its hinges. Metal screamed against metal. The creature's 4 arms grabbed at the door frame, pulling its massive body into the corridor. Todd did not look back. Looking back cost precious seconds. He turned a corner and immediately scraped his pen hard against a water pipe that ran along the wall. The sound echoed in both directions. The electromagnetic pulse would confuse the creature's senses for a moment. Just a moment. He ran 20 more meters and did it again on a different pipe. Then again on an electrical conduit box. Each time creating false signals. Each time moving before the Krell could lock onto his real position. The creature roared in frustration. Todd could hear it charging down the corridor, its heavy footsteps like thunder. But it kept stopping. Kept lunging at empty air where the pen scrapes had created signals. The Krell's own hunting instincts were betraying it. It was programmed to chase electromagnetic signatures. Todd was giving it too many signatures to track. Todd reached an intersection of hallways. He had 3 choices. Left led to the dining hall. Right led to the dormitories. Straight ahead led to a bridge that connected this building to the next. The security control room was beyond that bridge. He chose straight and ran. His human endurance was serving him well. Most species in the galaxy were sprinters. Fast in short bursts but quickly exhausted. Humans had evolved differently. They could run for hours. Not fast but steady. Persistent. Relentless. The bridge stretched 50 meters between buildings. It was enclosed, with windows on both sides showing the academy grounds below. Todd could see other cadets outside, running toward the designated safe zones. He could see security forces mobilizing. They looked small from up here. Toy soldiers moving in formation. He was halfway across the bridge when he heard the Krell enter behind him. It had figured out his trick. It was no longer chasing false signals. It was chasing him directly now. The creature was learning. That was bad. Prey that could teach predators new things did not usually survive long. Todd pushed harder. His legs burned. His lungs screamed for more air. But humans were good at ignoring pain. They could push their bodies beyond reasonable limits when survival demanded it. Marathon runners did it. Soldiers did it. Anyone who had ever fought to live another day did it. The end of the bridge approached. Todd could see the door that led to the next building. It was closed but not locked. Emergency protocols only locked certain areas. He reached it and grabbed the handle. His sweaty palm almost slipped. He gripped harder and pulled. The door opened. He threw himself through and immediately turned to look back. The Krell was 10 meters away. Close enough that Todd could see every detail. 4 arms ending in curved claws. Skin that looked like overlapping plates of black armor. A head with 6 eyes arranged in a circle, each one focusing independently. A mouth that opened sideways instead of up and down, revealing rows of teeth designed for tearing. It was the most terrifying thing Todd had ever seen. And it was looking directly at him. Todd scraped his pen one more time against the metal doorframe. Hard. Fast. The electromagnetic pulse flared. The Krell lunged forward, all 4 arms reaching. Todd slammed the door and ran into the new building. Behind him, the Krell crashed into the closed door. The impact bent the metal frame. But the door held. For now. He kept running toward the security control room. His pen was still in his hand. His only weapon. His only tool. It had saved him twice already. He hoped it could save him a few more times before this was over. Todd reached the security control room 3 minutes later. His lungs burned from running. Sweat dripped down his face. But he was alive. That was what mattered. The control room door was ahead, 20 meters down a narrow corridor. The door should have been sealed during an emergency. It should have been protected. But as Todd got closer, he saw the problem. The door was damaged. Someone or something had already been here. The metal frame was bent. Scorch marks blackened the walls. Sparks occasionally shot from exposed wiring near the ceiling. Todd slowed to a walk. His instincts screamed at him to be careful. Something felt wrong. The corridor was too quiet. Too still. He gripped his pen tighter and moved forward slowly. The control room door hung open at an angle. Inside, Todd could see computer terminals and display screens. Most were dark. A few flickered with error messages. The main power must have been cut during the initial breach. Emergency systems were running on backup generators, but they could not power everything. Todd stepped through the damaged doorway. Glass crunched under his boots. He looked around carefully. The room was empty. Or it seemed empty. He moved toward the main console, hoping he could still access something useful. Maybe the containment fields. Maybe the building lockdown protocols. His fingers touched the console's keyboard. Half the keys were missing. The screen showed only static. He tried another terminal. Same result. Someone had sabotaged this room. Or something had destroyed it during the breach. A sound made him freeze. Breathing. Deep and rhythmic. Coming from behind him. Todd turned slowly. His blood went cold. A Krell stood in the doorway. But this was not the same creature from before. This one was larger. Darker. Its armor plates were scarred from countless battles. 4 arms hung at its sides, each hand flexing its claws slowly. This was an alpha. The leader. The strongest of the pack. The creature's 6 eyes focused on Todd. All of them. He could see his own reflection in those black, soulless orbs. A small human. Alone. Holding nothing but a pen. The Krell made a sound. Not a roar. Something quieter. Almost like a laugh. It had hunted thousands of prey across dozens of worlds. It had never lost. And now it faced a human with a writing instrument. The alpha was not worried. It was amused. Todd's mind raced. The doorway was blocked. The control room had no other exits. The windows were reinforced glass, impossible to break. He was trapped. Completely and totally trapped. The Krell took 1 step forward. Its claws scraped against the floor, leaving deep scratches in the metal. It was taking its time. Savoring the moment. Predators at the top of the food chain did not rush. They enjoyed the hunt. Todd backed up until he hit the console behind him. Nowhere else to go. His hand tightened around his pen. Such a small thing. Such a useless weapon against a creature that could tear through steel. But humans had never been about fair fights. Humans survived by being clever. By using what they had. By refusing to give up even when everything seemed hopeless. Todd looked at his pen. Standard military issue. He had carried it every day since joining the academy. He knew every part of it. The metal body. The clip. The ink cartridge inside. The cartridge was pressurized. It had to be. The pen needed to work in 0 gravity, underwater, in extreme heat and cold. That meant the ink was under pressure. Significant pressure. An idea formed in his mind. Dangerous. Probably stupid. But it was the only chance he had. The Krell took another step forward. Then another. It was 5 meters away now. Close enough that Todd could smell it. That sharp, acidic scent that burned his nostrils. The creature's mouth opened sideways. Rows of teeth glistened in the emergency lighting. Todd unscrewed the pen's cap with shaking fingers. The exposed cartridge gleamed. He could see the small valve at the top where ink flowed out. That valve was all that kept the pressure contained. 3 meters. The Krell raised all 4 arms. Its claws spread wide. Ready to strike. Ready to tear and rend and kill. Todd looked at the creature's eyes. 6 of them. All focused on him. Eyes were sensitive. All predators had sensitive eyes. Even armored death machines from high-gravity worlds needed to see. And sensitive meant vulnerable. 2 meters. The Krell lunged forward with incredible speed. Todd twisted the pen's cartridge hard. The valve broke. Pressurized ink exploded outward in a dark stream. Todd aimed it directly at the alpha's face. At its eyes. The ink hit like a small fire hose. Black liquid splattered across the Krell's 6 eyes. The creature roared. Not in anger this time. In pain. Real pain. Its 4 arms flew to its face, claws scraping at the sticky ink that covered its eyes. Todd did not hesitate. He dove to the side as the blinded Krell stumbled forward. The creature crashed into the console where Todd had been standing. Metal crunched. Sparks flew. The Alpha thrashed wildly, still trying to clear its eyes. Todd rolled across the floor and came up near the wall. His pen was empty now. Useless. But there were other things here. Other tools. His eyes scanned the damaged room desperately. There. A coolant line. It ran along the wall near the floor, part of the computer system's cooling infrastructure. The line was metal. About as thick as his thumb. And it would be under pressure. Coolant systems always were. The Krell was recovering. It stopped thrashing. Started moving more carefully. Its other senses were taking over. It could still hear. Still smell. Still sense electromagnetic fields. Blindness was only a temporary setback. Todd grabbed the empty pen body. The exposed cartridge tip was sharp. Sharp enough to write. Maybe sharp enough to puncture. He crawled toward the coolant line. The Krell's head turned in his direction. It heard him moving. Heard the small sounds his body made against the floor. The creature crouched, ready to pounce. Todd raised the pen and stabbed downward at the coolant line. The metal tip punched through. Once. Twice. 3 times. Each impact made a small hole. Nothing happened for a second. Then the holes began spraying. Clear liquid shot out under high pressure. Not water. Something colder. Much colder. The Academy used advanced cooling systems. The liquid was near freezing even under normal conditions. The spray hit the Krell's legs. Where the liquid touched, frost formed instantly. The creature roared again and stumbled backward. Its movements became sluggish. Slower. The Krell came from a high-gravity world, but it was still a cold-blooded species. Extreme cold affected it like poison. Todd stabbed more holes in the coolant line. More spray. More cold. The room's temperature dropped rapidly. His breath came out in white clouds. His fingers went numb. But the Krell suffered worse. Much worse. The creature's legs locked up. Ice formed on its armor plates. It tried to move forward but fell. Its forearms hit the floor with a tremendous crash. The Alpha's 6 eyes were still covered in ink. Its body was freezing from the coolant spray. And it could not reach Todd. Todd stood up slowly. His whole body shook from cold and adrenaline. The coolant continued to spray, creating a growing pool of freezing liquid between him and the Krell. The creature thrashed weakly, but it was losing. Its metabolism was shutting down. The cold was winning. Todd looked at his pen. The empty body. The broken cartridge. Such a simple tool. But it had saved his life twice in 5 minutes. Once with ink. Once with its sharp tip. He stepped carefully around the coolant pool and moved toward the door. The Krell could not follow. Not now. Maybe not ever. Security forces would find it here, frozen and helpless. Todd walked into the corridor. 4 more Krell were somewhere in the Academy. 4 more hunters. But now Todd understood something important. The Krell were perfect predators. But perfect did not mean unbeatable. Everything had weaknesses. Everything could be defeated if you were smart enough. Creative enough. Human enough. He looked at his broken pen one more time, then put it back in his pocket. He would need to find other tools now. Other weapons. But the principle remained the same. Humans did not survive by being the strongest. They survived by refusing to quit. By turning everything into a weapon. By fighting with whatever they had until there was nothing left to fight with. And Todd still had plenty of fight left in him. Todd left the control room behind and moved deeper into the building. His mind worked through the problem like a puzzle. 6 Krell were loose in the Academy. He had neutralized 1. That left 5. 5 apex predators hunting in a building full of unarmed cadets. He could not fight them all. Even with tricks and creativity, he was still just one human with limited resources. But maybe he did not need to fight them. Maybe he could trap them instead. All of them. Together. The idea seemed impossible. But humans had done impossible things before. They had climbed the highest mountains. Crossed the deepest oceans. Reached other worlds. Impossibility was just a challenge waiting for the right solution. Todd needed information first. He needed to know where the Krell were. How they were moving. What they were doing. The main control room was destroyed, but the Academy had backup systems. Smaller terminals scattered throughout the buildings. Places where maintenance workers could access basic functions. He found one 3 corridors away. A small panel built into the wall. The screen was cracked but still working. Todd touched it with his fingertips. The interface lit up. Emergency power only. Limited functions available. But maybe enough. He pulled up a building map. Red dots marked emergency situations. There were dozens of them. Broken doors. Damaged walls. Triggered alarms. The Krell had torn through multiple sections during their rampage. But Todd could see patterns in the destruction. The predators were not moving randomly. They were hunting systematically, searching section by section. 4 red dots moved on the map. 4 Krell still active and hunting. 1 dot remained stationary. That would be the alpha he had frozen in the control room. The 6th dot was missing. Either destroyed or its tracking signal was offline. Todd studied the 4 moving dots. They were spread across different buildings, working independently. That was both good and bad. Good because they were not coordinating. Bad because herding them to one location would be nearly impossible. Unless he gave them a reason to come together. A target too tempting to ignore. Todd accessed the environmental controls. His instructor clearance gave him limited access. He could not shut down systems or trigger major lockdowns. But he could adjust smaller things. Temperature settings, lighting levels, air circulation, and electromagnetic fields. Every building in the academy generated electromagnetic fields. Power flowing through cables. Data streaming through networks. Equipment running constantly. These fields were usually background noise. Invisible and ignored. But to the Krell they were like sounds. Like smells. They could sense them. Track them. Follow them. Todd began adjusting power distribution across multiple buildings. Rerouting electricity through specific circuits. Creating patterns. Making some areas brighter electromagnetically. Making others dimmer. He was painting with electricity. Drawing paths that only the Krell could see. He made the paths all lead to one location. The gymnasium. It was the largest open space in the academy. High ceilings. Reinforced walls. And most importantly, it had containment systems. The gymnasium was used for combat training with dangerous creatures. It had barriers, cages, holding fields, everything needed to trap something deadly. Todd saved his changes to the environmental systems. The electromagnetic patterns would pulse through the buildings like a heartbeat. Steady, rhythmic, impossible for the Krell to ignore. They would sense it and follow it like prey following a scent trail to water. But electromagnetic patterns alone might not be enough. The Krell were hunters. They wanted prey. They wanted something alive to chase. Todd needed to give them that too. He took his pen from his pocket. The cartridge was empty. The tip was bent from stabbing the coolant line. But the metal body was still intact. Still conductive. Still useful. Todd began moving through the building. He chose his path carefully, following the electromagnetic trails he had created. Every 50 meters, he stopped and scraped his pen hard against metal surfaces. Pipes, railings, door frames. Each scrape created a brief electromagnetic pulse. Each pulse was like a footprint, a sign that living prey had passed this way. He moved quickly but not frantically. Humans were endurance runners. They could maintain a steady pace for hours. Most predators could sprint fast but tired quickly. Todd had learned this during survival training on Earth. The trick was to stay just ahead of the danger. Close enough to keep it interested. Far enough to avoid getting caught. His route took him through 3 buildings. Upstairs. Down corridors. Across bridges. Always moving toward the gymnasium. Always leaving electromagnetic signals behind. Breadcrumbs that the Krell would follow. He glanced at a wall terminal as he passed. The map showed the 4 red dots beginning to shift. Beginning to converge. They were sensing the patterns. Following the trails. The trap was working. Todd's legs burned from running. His breath came in short gasps. Sweat soaked through his uniform. But he did not slow down. Could not slow down. The Krell were faster than him in short sprints. His only advantage was that he could run forever. Or at least longer than they could track him. Above the academy, in the observation center, alien military commanders watched through security cameras. They had been monitoring the crisis since it began. Watching their cadets panic and flee. Watching security forces struggle to contain the situation. And now they watched something strange. Something unexpected. A human cadet was running through the buildings. Alone. Unarmed except for a broken pen. And somehow he was leading the Krell. All of them. Like a shepherd guiding dangerous animals exactly where he wanted them to go. Impossible, muttered Commander Vex, a 4-armed Zenthri with decades of military experience. No cadet has that kind of training. No species has that kind of instinct. Humans do, replied another observer. An elderly Thraxian female named Elder Korth. They are persistence hunters. Their ancestors chased prey across endless plains until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They are built for this. Built for running, perhaps, Vex said. But this is more than running. He is manipulating our systems. Creating electromagnetic patterns. That requires intelligence. Strategy. Humans are tool users, Korth said quietly. The best in the galaxy. Give them any system and they will find a way to use it. Often in ways we never imagined. On the screens, Todd reached the gymnasium. The massive doors were closed but unlocked. He grabbed the handle and pulled. The door was heavy. Designed to contain dangerous training exercises. Todd used both hands and all his strength. The door opened slowly. Just enough for him to slip through. The gymnasium was dark except for emergency lighting. The space was enormous. Large enough to hold combat exercises with vehicles. The floor was reinforced metal. The walls were lined with equipment storage. And along one side were the containment cages. Empty now. Waiting. Todd did not have much time. Maybe 2 minutes before the first Krell arrived. Maybe less. He ran to the environmental controls near the entrance. This panel had more functions than the small wall terminals. Full access to the gymnasium systems. He pulled up the atmospheric controls. The gymnasium could simulate different environments for training. Different air mixtures. Different temperatures. Different gravity levels. Todd found what he needed. The nitrogen injection system. Used to create low-oxygen environments for species that preferred such conditions. He programmed a delayed release. 5 minutes after he gave the command. That would give him time to get clear. Time to seal the building. The nitrogen would not kill the Krell. Just slow them down. Make them sluggish and weak. Cold-blooded predators from high-gravity worlds could handle many environments. But nitrogen-heavy atmospheres made them drowsy. Slowed their metabolism. Todd also activated the containment barriers. Electromagnetic fields that would snap on once all the Krell were inside. The fields would not hold them forever. But combined with the nitrogen atmosphere, they would hold long enough for security forces to arrive with proper restraints. A roar echoed from somewhere outside the gymnasium. Close. Very close. The first Krell had arrived. Todd entered the final commands into the system. Everything was ready. The trap was set. Now he just needed to be the bait one more time. One last sprint. One final test of his human endurance. He turned and ran toward the far exit on the opposite side of the gymnasium. Behind him, the main doors exploded inward. A Krell charged through. Then another. Then 2 more. 4 of them. All following the electromagnetic trails. All sensing the prey they had been hunting. Todd reached the far door and dove through. He rolled across the floor on the other side and came up running. His fingers found the door controls. He slammed the button. The heavy door began to close. Slowly. Too slowly. The Krell were crossing the gymnasium. Running at full speed. They would reach the door before it closed. They would follow him through. The trap would fail. Todd pulled his broken pen one more time. He jammed it into the door control panel. Sparks flew. The door stopped closing. It was only halfway shut. But the panel was destroyed now. The Krell could not override it. Could not force it open wider. The door gap was too small for the massive predators to fit through. They crashed against it. Claws scraped metal. They roared in frustration. But they were trapped. All 4 of them. Contained in the gymnasium. Todd activated the nitrogen release and the containment barriers from a backup panel nearby. The systems came online. The trap was complete. He collapsed against the wall. His legs finally giving out. His chest heaving. But alive. Still alive. And 5 of the 6 Krell were now neutralized. 1 frozen. 4 trapped. Only 1 remained. Todd sat against the wall outside the gymnasium and tried to catch his breath. His entire body ached. His legs felt like they were made of stone. Sweat dripped into his eyes. But he was alive. 5 Krell were contained. The crisis was almost over. Almost. 1 Krell was still out there. The 6th one. The tracking signal had gone offline early in the breach. It could be anywhere in the academy. It could be hunting other cadets right now. Or it could be hunting him. Todd forced himself to stand. His muscles protested. His mind screamed at him to rest. But he could not rest. Not yet. Not while students were still in danger. He checked the wall terminal near the gymnasium entrance. The display showed security forces finally mobilizing effectively. They had brought in heavy containment equipment. Stun weapons. Tactical teams trained for dangerous situations. They were sweeping through the building systematically. Evacuating cadets. Securing sections. But there was still no sign of the 6th Krell. Todd studied the building maps more carefully. Where would a predator go if it lost its tracking signal? Where would it hide? The Krell were not ambush hunters. They were pursuit predators. Built for chasing down prey across long distances. But even pursuit predators needed to rest eventually. Needed to find safe places to recover between hunts. Safe for a Krell meant isolated. Away from threats. Somewhere defensible. Somewhere with limited entry points. Todd's eyes stopped on one section of the map. The equipment storage sublevel. Below the main training grounds. It was rarely used. Mostly empty except for old machinery and spare parts. Only one entrance. One exit. Perfect for a predator that wanted to control its environment. He was too tired to run anymore. But he could walk. He had to walk. Because if he was right and the sixth Krell was down there, it might remain hidden for hours. It might emerge later when everyone thought the crisis was over. When guards were relaxed. When cadets felt safe again. Todd moved through the corridors slowly. His hands stayed on the wall for support. His broken pen was still jammed in the door control panel at the gymnasium. He had no weapons now. No tools. Just his mind and his stubborn human refusal to quit. The entrance to the sublevel was a heavy door marked with warning symbols. Authorized personnel only. Todd's cadet credentials barely gave him access. He pressed his hand against the security scanner. The light turned green. The lock disengaged with a heavy click. The door opened to reveal stairs leading down into darkness. Emergency lighting provided only dim illumination. The air smelled stale. And used. Todd descended carefully. Each step echoed in the confined space. The sublevel was exactly as he remembered from orientation. A large open area filled with equipment racks. Old training dummies. Broken simulators. Spare parts for machinery. Everything covered in a thin layer of dust. Everything quiet and still. Too quiet. Too still. Todd's instincts prickled. Something was here. He could feel it. The same way ancient humans felt when predators watched them from the darkness. The same survival sense that had kept his species alive for millions of years. He moved between the equipment racks slowly. His eyes scanned everything, looking for shapes that did not belong. Movement in the shadows. The sublevel was large. Dozens of places to hide. Hundreds of shadows. Then he saw it. Fresh scratches on the floor. 4 parallel lines. Claw marks. Recent. They led deeper into the sublevel. Toward the back corner where the oldest equipment was stored. Todd followed the scratches. His heart rate increased. His breathing became shallow. Every instinct told him to run. To get security. To let trained soldiers handle this. But there was no time. The Krell could leave this sublevel at any moment. Could emerge into corridors full of returning students. The scratches led to a gap between 2 massive storage containers. The gap was narrow. Maybe 2 meters wide. Dark. Todd could not see what was inside. But he could hear something. Breathing. Slow and rhythmic. The sound of a predator at rest. Todd picked up a piece of metal from the floor. A broken support bracket. About the length of his forearm. It was something. Better than nothing. He gripped it tightly and moved toward the gap. The Krell lunged from the darkness without warning. All 4 arms extended. Claws gleaming. Mouth open wide. It had been waiting. Listening. Sensing his electromagnetic signature. And now it attacked. Todd threw himself backward. The claws missed his face by centimeters. He hit the ground hard. The metal bracket flew from his hand and clattered away into the darkness. The Krell advanced. Slower than the others. Todd could see why. This one was injured. One of its arms hung useless at its side. Its armor plates were cracked. It had been damaged during the initial breach. That was why its tracking signal failed. But injured did not mean harmless. The creature still had 3 working arms. Still had its claws. Still had its killing instincts. And Todd had nothing. No pen. No tools. No tricks left. The Krell raised its 3 good arms. Ready to finish this. Ready to claim its prey. Todd's hand touched something on the floor beside him. A pipe. Part of the sublevel's old plumbing system. Disconnected and abandoned years ago. His fingers closed around it. He swung it with all his remaining strength. The pipe connected with the Krell's injured arm. The creature roared in pain. It stumbled backward. Todd scrambled to his feet and ran. Not away from the Krell. Toward it. The move surprised the predator. Prey did not charge at predators. Todd slid under the creature's reaching claws. His momentum carried him past its legs. He came up on the other side and kept running. Toward the sublevel exit. Toward the stairs. The Krell recovered and chased. It was slower than the others. Injured and exhausted. But still fast enough. Still deadly enough. Todd reached the stairs and climbed. His legs screamed in protest. His lungs burned. But he climbed. Step after step after step. The human ability to keep moving. To ignore pain. To push beyond limits. The Krell followed. Its claws scraped against the stairs. Its breathing grew labored. The injury was taking its toll. The pursuit was costing it energy it did not have. Todd reached the top of the stairs and burst through the door. He was back in the main building. Back in the corridors. And there, 30 meters away, was a security team. 6 soldiers in full armor. Weapons raised. They had been searching for the last Krell. Down, one of them shouted. Todd dropped to the floor. Stun blasts flew over his head. Blue energy bolts that hit the Krell as it emerged from the sublevel. Once, twice, 3 times. The creature roared and tried to charge. But the stun weapons were designed for exactly this situation. Designed to stop even the most dangerous predators. The Krell's legs collapsed. Its 3 working arms went limp. It crashed to the floor and lay still. Not dead. Just unconscious. Contained at last. Todd remained on the floor. He could not move anymore. Could not think anymore. He had nothing left. His body had given everything. His mind had solved every problem. There was nothing remaining except exhaustion. Security teams surrounded him. Medical personnel checked him for injuries. Someone wrapped a thermal blanket around his shoulders. Someone else offered water. Todd drank it without tasting it. His hands shook so badly he almost dropped the container. Hours later, after medical cleared him, after he had showered and changed into clean clothes, Todd was summoned to the observation center. The place where senior commanders watched and evaluated everything that happened at the academy. He walked into a room full of alien military officers. Dozens of species. Hundreds of years of combined combat experience. They all turned to look at him as he entered. A human cadet. Exhausted. Unarmed. Unremarkable except for what he had done. Commander Vex stepped forward. The 4-armed Zenthari who led the Academy's tactical division. His face was unreadable. His eyes studied Todd carefully. Cadet Harris, Vex said. His voice was formal. Official. You acted without orders. You endangered yourself repeatedly. You should have evacuated with the other students. Todd said nothing. He stood at attention. Waiting for whatever punishment was coming. Vex continued. You also neutralized 6 Krell predators. Creatures that have never been defeated in single combat by any species in the known galaxy. You did this alone. With no weapons. Using only your intelligence and a writing instrument. The room was completely silent. Every officer waited for what came next. Vex's expression changed. Something that might have been respect appeared in his eyes. The Galactic Military has trained warriors for 10,000 years. We have developed strategies, tactics, weapons, everything needed to create perfect soldiers. And today, a human cadet with a pen taught us something we had forgotten. He gestured at the displays behind him. They showed recordings of everything Todd had done. The electromagnetic tricks. The coolant spray. The trap in the gymnasium. All of it captured by security cameras. We teach our soldiers to fight with every weapon, Vex said. But you fought with awareness. With adaptation. With a refusal to accept defeat. You turned your environment into a weapon. You turned your enemy's strengths into weaknesses. You survived not because you were the strongest or the fastest, but because you thought. You persisted. You refused to quit even when quitting was the logical choice. Vex placed one of his 4 hands on Todd's shoulder. Humanity has only been part of the galactic community for 50 years. We thought we understood what humans brought to the galaxy. Endurance, tool use, creative problem solving. But today you showed us something deeper. Something more fundamental. He paused, then smiled. A rare expression for his species. You showed us that the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy is not a gun or a blade. It is a mind that refuses to accept impossible. Perhaps we have been teaching warfare incorrectly all these years. Perhaps the human way is worth studying more closely. The other officers nodded. Some looked impressed. Others looked thoughtful. All of them looked at Todd differently now. Not as a weak species that needed protection, but as something else. Something potentially more dangerous than any predator. Todd finally spoke. His voice was quiet but steady. On Earth we have a saying. It is not the weapon. It is the warrior. Today I just needed something to write my own survival story. Vex laughed. A deep, booming sound. Indeed, Cadet Harris. Indeed. And what a story you have written. Todd was dismissed with honors. No punishment. No reprimand. Just respect from warriors who understood what he had accomplished. As he walked out of the observation center, he reached into his pocket. His broken pen was there. Security had retrieved it from the door panel. They had returned it to him as evidence. As a reminder, Todd looked at it one more time. A simple writing instrument. Broken. Empty. But it had been enough. When combined with human stubbornness and creativity, it had been more than enough. He smiled and put it back in his pocket. Tomorrow he would get a new pen. But he would keep this one. As a reminder that humans did not need to be the strongest to survive. They just needed to be clever, persistent, and absolutely unwilling to quit.